their workday. As Maya mentioned, I'm Sarah. I am a solutions engineer here at Atlassian. Been here at Atlassian for about 8 to 9 months or so, really with a focus on what we call our teamwork collection, which entails Jira, Confluence, Rovo, and what we're really going to discuss this afternoon, which is Loom. So let me share my screen just to give you a quick rundown of what you can expect from our time together. Let's just share my screen. Give me a quick thumbs up or acknowledgement that everything, you can see everything. The sound sounds good.
Sarah, just quick, I need to make some announcement. So guys,
Oh yeah, please.
Yeah, we do have 2 gift cards from the Atlassian. So what you need to do, you need to be active during the entire session. Ask question as many as you can. We'll be monitoring those, and the lucky 2 participants will get a chance for those 2 gift cards. So Sarah will announce one user who will be getting the gift card, and I will be announcing one user who will be getting the gift card. So please do ask as many as question you can, or maybe just try to understand the concept, like that. Over to you, Sarah.
Wonderful stuff. Yes, definitely invite you to share your questions, your comments, your feedback. In terms of how you do that, right? I think we can work in the chat, and because we're a relatively small group, I think also feel empowered if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question live. That's also fine. What I'd say is if you have a really specific and perhaps a complex question that's more kind of bespoke to your organization, perhaps we could leave those until the end, but otherwise anything that comes kind of top of mind, feel free to interject, and we'll keep it interactive. So just a very quick overview of what you can expect to see in today's session. So you'll really see how video, and specifically with the help of AI, are helping to shape the future of teamwork. So we're really going to focus on Loom as the starting point. So we'll first take a quick look at the common challenges out there in the market when it comes to collaboration as of today, and why a lot more teams are shifting towards this async way of working, async communication, in order to stay aligned without needing constant meetings. Then you'll get to see Loom and its AI capabilities live. For example, being able to create summaries, chapters, and more as part of a video. After that, you'll see how the teamwork collection fits, or rather how Loom fits into the teamwork collection with a live walkthrough, and kind of how it works alongside those tools and others that teams are already using to plan, to document, and to collaborate as well. Then we will anchor on a customer story just to put some of this into context. And of course, I'd love to leave you with some practical next steps as you are beginning to explore how to use Loom, and perhaps how you can incorporate that in some of your key activities when you open the laptop next week and get back into work. And of course, as we already mentioned, if you have any questions, really invite you to share those with us, either as we go, or if you want to keep them for the end of the session, whatever feels right for you. All right, so let's take a bit of a high-level overview of kind of what's out there at the moment. So here at Atlassian, we have our own internal, what we call a teamwork lab. It's this research arm of the organization full of academics and researchers and behavioral scientists that really come together and analyze how teams work. And they do that in a number of ways. And one of the key ways is our Atlassian State of Teams report, which basically takes a pulse on thousands and thousands of knowledge workers and executives to find out what's working well for them, when it comes to collaboration, and where some of the pains sit. So here, if we look at our report that we released last year, teams are stuck when it comes to collaborating. They are drowning in notifications, back and forth threads, and unclear next steps. And that can slow down a lot of the progress. Perhaps for some folks, they have unclear overlapping goals and aren't quite sure where to put their time. For others, they are stuck between multiple different systems of record and different sources of information, and it can be hard to find what exactly they need in order to get their work done. And when we look at all these challenges, one of the solutions that they try to use to achieve, to try and get everyone back on track here, is to just have a meeting about it. But of course, one of the challenges with that is one meeting turns into 2 meetings, turns into 3 meetings, and all of a sudden you have this meeting overload and meeting fatigue, right? Now, we know here at Atlassian that meeting fatigue is real. Perhaps just think yourselves this week how many hours you spent logged into a Microsoft Teams meeting, a Zoom meetings, Google meetings. There's a lot of face time that we have with our colleagues. And perhaps off the back of that, how much work and how much action is coming out of those meetings? So again, as we are trying to address that challenge of this meeting overload and this meeting fatigue, a couple of things that people are considering, right? In that research, teams were telling us that perhaps to reduce maybe the kind of intensity of meetings across the week, you would stack the meetings back to back. But of course, as you can imagine, that leads to a lot of fatigue, bouncing from one call to the next. It's hard to be fully engaged and present in each of those meetings, and also hard to have that lack of focus from this constant context switching. Secondly, some folks are trying to rely on those longer messages that they post in Microsoft Teams or Slack threads. But that can also be a bit disruptive, right? Because they also take a long time to consume. I mean, I'm not sure about folks on the call, but I'm not a fast reader. So that can take me a lot of time to kind of ingest and understand. And often as I'm reading that, I'm often going to miss context, which then ironically results in me having to reach out to the person that shared that update and ask for a call just for clarification. And it's this never-ending cycle here. And then finally, perhaps you do have meeting tools that you're using to get work done, but perhaps it's not fully integrated. And so because of that, perhaps it's hard to have a summary of what was discussed in the meeting automatically. Perhaps you don't have those meeting notes. Perhaps you can't assign actions to folks outside of getting a paper and a pen and getting those action items documented. So I'd love to hear from you. Does anyone recognize any of these solutions today in the way that they work? Is anyone having to rely on a lot of long messages in Teams or Slack? Are folks stuck in back-to-back meetings? Where does the audience sit as of today? Feel free to share in the chat if you like, or if you have a specific example, you're welcome to share on the mic, whatever you feel comfortable with. So we can continue, but if anything pops up, feel free to share it as we go. So what is the solution, you might ask? Like, how do we effectively collaborate and communicate across one single connected platform here to tackle that meeting overload that we just outlined and improve our productivity at scale? Well, that's where Loom comes into play. Maybe, I don't know if we have any show of hands, or perhaps we can get a sense in the chat if anyone has used Loom before, has anyone experienced, or perhaps has just heard of it. What's the familiarity with Loom in the group this afternoon?
I see. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I see. To Philip and Michael have shared something. So Philip shared lots of meeting, but quite often, these are alignment meetings or interactive. Michael shared, I think that choosing to create a long team message is more generational, as the younger generation do not like phone calls.
Yeah, that's a really interesting angle, actually, isn't it? Yeah, like, of course, we talk about how things have changed from the corporate ways of working, but I think that there's also something to be said for kind of all the changes in the generational ways of working and how folks like to get their points across. I think that's a really interesting, like a really interesting evolution, right, of folks that prefer to work back and forth over text, right, as opposed to having the call or having a video and not having a meeting as well.
Right. Likita has some question. When teams relies on long chat threads in tools like a Slack or Microsoft Teams, how Loom can help make communication clear and fast? I think you need to wait Likita for a while. She'll be talking to her presentation demo, and then maybe probably you will get a more idea how you can use Loom for that.
Yeah, and actually, I think that's a really good question to jump into Loom, right? So that is where Loom comes into play. So Loom, for those that have only heard about it, it's a video messaging tool that we have here at Atlassian that helps you get your message across through instantly shareable videos, right? So with Loom, you can record your camera, your microphone, and your desktop, or like a specific window on your computer at the same time. And then your video is then instantly available to share with others, however you choose to do so. And really, well, what we're thinking about this is that sometimes the best meeting is often no meeting at all, right? And that's kind of what we're trying to solve for. So how we reduce the number of meetings that don't have to happen, and then looking at the meetings that do have to happen, how can we make them even more effective? So let me explain in a bit more detail. So when can a Loom be helpful? Well, here on this matrix, we have everything from single use case to something a bit more evergreen. So thinking about kind of those single use cases, we could think about quick, personal, and high impact announcements, right? Up at the top, maybe company-wide announcements, all the way to the more informal single-use use cases, such as I've just joined a company, perhaps I want to introduce myself, or perhaps I've just rolled into a project and I just want to introduce myself, or perhaps any quick questions and answers that I have, easy to go back and forth in a way that I can also share my screen and kind of illustrate what I'm trying to achieve, or perhaps what I'm asking for help with, right? Also thinking about how we can educate our wider team on processes as well. So that also leads us onto the evergreen side of this matrix as well, right? So if we have reoccurring questions, or we have a repeatable process that we want folks to have an understanding of, right? We can package up those short videos and we can share them out. Either we can embed them in our knowledge repository, like a Confluence, like a SharePoint, and so on and so forth. We can also integrate and share within Microsoft Teams as well, right? So ultimately, what we're doing here is we're putting together an asset that people can watch back at a time convenient to them. Now, why is that important? Well, with Loom, we're able to reduce that notification fatigue that we get from the messages that we have in Teams and Slack. I'm not sure about you, but here working at Atlassian, we have a lot of Slack channels. We have a lot of messages. We have a lot of updates every day. So, every day I jump into my Slack and I think, where do I need to focus first? So with Loom, it's a lot easier to consume that content at a time that's convenient for me, and can also just gives me a little bit of that extra understanding. And I think kind of when we look at how we use Loom to reduce those like number of meetings, we're trying to reduce that meeting fatigue that we get from those back-to-back calls that we have just to align, right? I also saw in the chat, for example, that sometimes you do have alignment meetings that can be super productive, and that's not necessarily what we're trying to replace or remove, because there's a lot of value from that. But thinking about those kind of meetings when you just receive information and perhaps it's a one-way, it's a one-way. It's like a presentation, right? As opposed to an interactive opportunity to debate and discuss and decide. I'm going to pause there because there is a hand up there from you, Michael.
Yeah. With Loom meetings, or not meetings, but recordings, is there a way, like with Confluence, you can, if you're on the mobile app for Confluence, you can create playlists and listen to is it possible to do Loom playlists too? Not that you would watch videos while driving or anything, but the idea that you could be mobile, like at an airport or wherever, and you can queue up things that you need to watch or want to watch. Is that something you have or are thinking about having?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really appreciate you asking that. So we do actually have a separate Loom application that you can have on your phone. In terms of how we can put it together kind of in a playlist, perhaps I can come back to you on that one. I haven't come across it before. I do like the idea though, indeed, just kind of having, kind of just before you head out the door, right? Having a list of videos that you want to kind of autoplay kind of after the next one is finished. So after that 30 minutes in the car, you have kind of that audio and that update. But for sure, we do have an app that you can take Loom with you on the go. But let me take that as a follow-up in terms of the autoplay and like kind of being able to choose and define a playlist. If we don't have it, I think it would be a really nice idea.
Thank you.
Sure, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. And perhaps, also just to keep it interactive, how many, just to ask the group, how many meetings did you attend this past week that perhaps could have just been a short video, a short Loom? Perhaps just an approximate amount in the chat. Yeah, one. Mm-hmm. So all those meetings were really important and really needed there, Arman. I see. We have 5 to 7. Yeah. From Jagdish. Yeah, it's like really varies, doesn't it? That's really cool. If this is your main meeting. Yeah, your first meeting. And then everything else can be done asynchronously. I think that's awesome. So yeah, really nice to see. Yeah. I think that's fantastic, right? Like I think with the way that we work, I think especially with the days of us not needing to be in the office 5 days a week, I think kind of after COVID and we've kind of found a balance after going from being in the office full time to being at home full time, and we now occupy this kind of hybrid space. I think it's awesome that companies have invested that time in really thinking and kind of encouraging employees to think about if a meeting is really appropriate. So yeah, awesome. Let me begin to lead into some of the capabilities that really make Loom so effective, right? And also make it more than just a video tool. So first things first, let me pop this on loop so you can see it. With the help of AI, once we record that Loom video, we'll be able to take advantage of an auto summary, as well as highlighting chapters within our video. So AI is going to instantly transcribe and summarize every video without requiring any note taking, and it's also going to detect any shifts in the topic, right? So especially if it's a longer video and we are going from topic to topic, section to section, and then it's going to auto-generate a list of chapters that folks are able to jump into rather than having to watch the whole video. So perhaps, let me give you an example. Let's say that we are doing, let's say that I'm a project manager and I'm putting together a kickoff Loom. So I basically want to outline what the purpose of the project is, and perhaps a couple of key areas of focus. Perhaps there's a couple of risks in there. So like when I share this with the different cross-functional teams that are going to be involved, especially from a leadership perspective from each of these teams, they don't have a lot of time in their calendars, right? Perhaps if they open that Loom, even if it's a short video, perhaps even then it's still too long. So they can open up the Loom, there will be a list of chapters, and they can quickly identify where they need to be and what's important for them in that moment. Everything else is a nice to have. Additionally, we have the ability to automatically extract any tasks and decisions from the video into structured next steps. So, like also another use case. So let's say that we have recorded a meeting with Loom. So we have multiple people on the call, right? Perhaps we have different next steps for different people. Or if I am recording this video alone as a project manager, perhaps I want to assign work to different people. So that would also be auto-generated. Of course, I can then decide how to allocate and how to push that, for example, into Jira. But just as a first step, it's quite interesting. And then just finally, and then I do see we have a hand up there from Hitesh. We also have the ability to give give the video a quick polish and a quick edit, right? So thinking about, a lot of people aren't a fan of speaking in public or speaking on camera as well. So, you know, like often the feedback I hear is, well, sometimes it can take me, you know, it can take me an hour to record a 5-minute video because I'm so stuck on how I get the recording right, how I say what I want to say. And so with the help of AI within Loom, we are able to remove ums and ahs that we're not happy with and any awkward pauses. This is something that I use quite a lot as someone that uses a lot of those filler words as well. So just to give you a bit of a high-level overview of some of the capabilities you can expect with AI when it comes to putting that Loom together. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Hitesh, with your hand up. Please go ahead.
Hello, Sarah. Yeah, I was just thinking about is Loom going after evolve into a knowledge management like a AI platform
Mhm.
related about it?
Yes. So I think, you know, I would say that you can definitely consider it as a knowledge platform, but I would say kind of like how it fits into the Atlassian ecosystem is it's another source of information, right? And I think kind of all of this really comes together and compounds with the use of AI and with the use of Rovo. So if folks have worked with Rovo or worked with other AI capabilities in the past, right? Being able to pull information from different assets, like your pages in Confluence, like your SharePoint documents, you can also pull information out of these videos as well. Does that answer your question?
Good one. And I was going through Atlassian Rovo before the meeting. So
Yep.
how might Loom integrating with these emerging assistants like Rovo?
Yeah, well, I actually have a live example that I can show you. So if you hang on, I'll get to that shortly and you'll be able to see that in action. Awesome. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you first, I'm going to show you Loom on its own in action. And then once we've seen that in action, we'll then watch it in action again live in the context of the Teamwork collection. So that's Jira, Confluence, and Rovo as well. So let me come out of the presentation and we're going to jump into Loom. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually just going to record about a 1-minute video live. So you'll have to bear with me. Then I'm going to show you kind of how the components are auto-created. I'm going to show you how we can edit the video. And I'm actually going to share the link with you to also interact with the video just to show you how easy it is. So what we're going to do, as it's the end of the week, the weekend is coming up, I'm actually going to put a Loom together explaining a couple of things that I want to achieve over this weekend. So I've just launched Loom. I'm just going to share the camera instead of sharing kind of everything on the screen. It isn't so relevant right now. And I want to add my microphone. So let's do that quickly. Here we go. All right. So 3, 2, 1. Here we go. All right. Hi, everyone. I wanted to record a quick... Yes. Hi, everyone. I wanted to record a quick Loom to walk through a few things I'm planning this weekend and how I'm organizing them. This will be a quick overview of what I want to get done and the next steps coming out of it. So first, I want to focus on cleaning and organizing my desk and workspace. Over the past week, my desk has gotten a little cluttered, so my goal is to reset and restart everything before I open the laptop again on Monday. So that includes organizing files on my computer, cleaning up the desk, and also reviewing a couple of sticky notes that I have around the desk, just to make sure everything is easier to find. Next, I'm going to take care of a couple of quick errands and activities. I've got to go and do some grocery shopping. I haven't got any food left in my fridge. Have to stock up on some laundry detergent. Have to return a package that I ordered. And I'm also going to meet a friend for a coffee as well. So these are all very pretty quick tasks, but I want to make sure I group them together so I get them done efficiently. And finally, I want to spend a little time planning ahead for everything that I have to do next week. My goal is to review upcoming priorities, outline my top projects, and schedule some time for focus work. So these are the main things on my list for the weekend: organizing my workspace, running errands, and planning ahead for the next week. So if you have any suggestions or ideas for anything I should add to that list, feel free to drop them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. So end scene, that is our Loom. So let's just give that a moment and see what we're working with. So this is all unfolding real time, which are the joys of a live demo. Some things work, and we're going to see what everything looks like. So straight away at the bottom, you can see that I have a quick summary that's been auto-generated based on everything that I've discussed. Underneath, it's just a little hidden because I have my Record a Loom video there, call to action, but you'll notice that I have a couple of chapters that have been auto-generated. Now, because this was a really short video, I don't have a lot of chapters, but what I could do is I can always go ahead and I can edit them. So I can always, if there was something that was potentially missed or that I want to explicitly call out, I could add a different timestamp and then add a chapter from there. Also notice that I have my full transcript on the right-hand side that's been auto-generated. I also just want to share with you right now, in terms of the transcript and auto-generation, we currently support about 50 languages. So definitely invite you to jump in and see if the language that you wish to work in is supported. I know, kind of looking at the region that folks are based in Surat, we don't have Gujarati right now, but we have a range of other languages. I would say English is probably our best supported language, especially when it comes to the use of the filler words. We only support that in English as of today, just because every language has a different type of nuance when it comes to those ums and ahs. And when we look at the editing, right? So you might have noticed that I took some intentional ums and ahs. I also paused a little bit and just noticed that just by finishing the recording, Loom has already removed a couple of those filler words. So if I just want some quick editing, I don't have to take too much time. Of course, if you are putting together something a bit more on the polished side and you want to really edit line by line and word by word in your transcript, you are able to open up the recording here. For example, perhaps if you didn't start speaking until a couple of seconds in, you can make it shorter. Perhaps there are a couple of ums and ahs, or perhaps you repeated words, or perhaps you made a mistake. That's not a problem. You can slice and dice those pieces out of the video. So again, you don't need a lot of experience for this, right? This is very user-friendly. You don't need to be a technician to work with this. And if you make any changes and you change your mind, it's very easy to revert that as well. So what I'd like to do now is, because you'll notice, perhaps just to introduce you, let's replay the first bit back. Yes. Hi, everyone. I wanted to record a quick Loom to walk through a few things I'm planning this weekend and how I'm organizing them. Now, I'm just going to pause here for a second, because you'll notice I have some reactions and I have this comment button. And I'm going to introduce this because I'm going to hand this over to you in just a second. But just notice that as the video is being played back, I can choose to add a reaction just to indicate how I feel about that point. So, it could be some good support if you have a lot of people that are watching back that video and perhaps really liked this point being made, or perhaps they were a bit skeptical, right? This is a nice way to show a bit of support and show a bit of interaction with the content. But also, perhaps, for example, perhaps I have a question about what's happening at this point in the video. Okay, so here I can see over the past week, the desk has gotten a little cluttered. Have you thought about tidying it up every night before you close your laptop, for example? And then here you'll notice that when we add that comment, so my goal is it's going to be attached to the particular point in the video. So this is also a really nice way that if you want to have a discussion asynchronously and get feedback and go back and forth, you can see that we can start a bit of a conversation in those comments, all tied back to timestamp as well. Quick pause there because I see you have your hand up there, Michael.
Yeah, I actually have two questions. One, is there a way after this video is created and you're ready to share it out to add a URL or links to Confluence pages or Jira issues that relate to the content?
Yeah, so just so I understand your question, kind of being able to take the video into Jira or into Confluence is your ask?
Not
Or
exactly.
not exactly?
So
Mhm.
the way I guess the way I see this at the moment, so let's just, for an example, I create a new document
Mhm.
uh, and I want to bring it to everyone's attention. So I might send a team email with the link to the Loom
Yeah.
saying, hey, here's a new thing, check it out. So they watch the video, and let's say this video is, like I said, about documentation, a specific document.
Mhm.
How do I put the link to
Yes.
that document in this video? Because I'm not going to say https Atlassian.net, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, it's super easy. Let me pop back in here. So I actually have an option, or like I have an opportunity here to add links into the video, right? So I can, yeah, like I can choose if I want it to be like a persisting link. So, if the whole thing, pertains to a particular asset, right? I can have it as a persisting link, like so, and just have it there at the top right, the top left for the whole video, and it, easy to access. I could also have it at the end of the video as well. Also, something that is interesting, and I'm kind of hinting a little bit into kind of like how Loom works with these other tools. Just a sneak peek, but I will hold off and show you this properly in a moment. We also have a way to take the information in the video that you've put together and put together work items in Jira, your how-to guides in Confluence, and like when you auto-publish those, you're also going to have a relationship between the two assets as well.
Okay, and then the other thing is you were showing people's reactions and comments to the video.
Mhm.
This can happen over a period of a week or whatever it is. So how do you, the content creator, then know, oh, there's a new comment or there's a new reaction, and how often do you got to keep going back to your video to find out where these things got inserted since the last ones, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, of course. Well, every piece of activity that happens on your video, you'll receive a notification, and there's a couple of ways that you can choose to have that notification. So the default would be to be notified via email. Appreciate for the majority of us folks, trying to keep the inbox at a decent amount is hard. So what we can also do is we have integrations with Slack and integrations with Microsoft Teams, whereby you can get those notifications into those hubs as well. So kind of if folks are watching your video for the first time, or perhaps, they've left a comment on your video, you can have that notification in your stream of flow, right? So you're not having to hop into the Loom yourself and like see what's been added or what's been shared.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Keep the questions coming. Okay, I also saw we have a question here from or a hand up from Hubhami Paul. Apologies if I'm not saying your name. Nice to hear from you. What's your question?
Hey, hi, sir. Yeah, you may call me Paul. So my
Paul?
question is, you showed how to add a comment at a
Yeah.
specific timestamp. So if
Mhm.
I'm working in Jira, do this Loom comments and reactions sync over to the Jira tickets, or do I need to jump back into Loom to see the team's feedback?
Oh, that's a good question. You know what? I guess perhaps just to take a step back. So if you is your ask if you convert the Loom into a Jira work item, or is the ask if you copy the Loom link over into a Jira work item as a reference?
It would be the latter, sir.
Let me check on that for you. I'm not sure if the comments come over. So rather than take a guess at that for you, I would be happy to find that out for you, Paul, and let you know in our follow-up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
we have one more question from Lekita. Let's say I'm new to Loom, right? So what is the easiest workflow to start with the Loom? I want to use the Loom, right? So how I can get started, and where, in which use case I can use the
Yeah.
Loom?
Yeah, of course. Look, like if we keep it really, really simple, we can think about how we potentially replace a status update with a Loom, right? So perhaps if you were going to put like a status update out in a Microsoft Teams chat, or perhaps you had a meeting in place for that status update, you could start by recording your portion of the status update, for example, as a Loom, just a couple of minutes, even without the AI capability, but just to get a feel for how it works, right? Kind of just get comfortable with sharing this information over video, and then inviting your co-workers to kind of interact with you and to share their input and their feedback on what you've shared in the form of the comments, for example. That's a very easy way to get started. You could also think, for example, and this is jumping a little ahead, but you could also think about if there's a process or a system that you want to explain to others, something that's just been recently codified, right? You could also share your screen, walk your co-workers through that process A to B with the video as well, and share that with them too. Or perhaps, which could also be helpful, is if you still have to have that meeting anyways, it's an important meeting, perhaps you could change the focus of that meeting, and rather than include all the information in the meeting, you have like a pre-read, like a pre-Loom, where you share the context, you share the information in a short Loom video before the meeting happens. You ask everyone to watch that Loom, and then you jump into the call. Everyone has watched the Loom, and then you jump into that decision making, into that debate, and kind of you like move that work forward. That could be an interesting one. If your meetings still have to happen for now, that's a nice way to begin to kind of adjust the behavior of you, your team, and others. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it is obviously it is. And one more use case, as a QA engineer, right? If you found any bug, or right, you can capture the those bugs through Loom also, and you can share with the within your ticket also, that developer can check and try to find out, oh, this is the way I'm getting the bug, and then probably developer can try to solve that. So you don't have to go back to the QA, ask for the question. I mean, ask for the what exactly you're finding that bug also. So that is the that will save your time also.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm actually going to show you that example live in just a second. I see we have some hands up. Would it be okay if we hold your questions just for a couple more minutes, and then we come back to them, just so we can get into that use case? Because I'm sure, well, there's a chance that perhaps that addresses some of them. But if not, I'll come back to the both of you, Hitesh and Bibek, as well, with the hands up. I'll just make a note of it, but just to keep us moving. So what I'd like to do, and I'm just going to share this with you now. You don't have to open it, but this is more of an after the fact. If you're curious and this is your first time using Loom, I'm actually going to make this video available with a public link. I'm going to copy the link. I'm going to put it in the chat that we have, and then after the session, or whenever's convenient, feel free to open it up, explore, watch the video back. You can add your comments, add the reactions, just to get a bit of a feel for it, right? If it's your first time using it, just to show you, especially as a member of the audience, what it feels like from that perspective as well. All right, we are going to continue, because I really want to show you what all this looks like. What all of this looks like together. But just before we get there, now, up until now, I've shown you kind of how Loom addresses those use cases that replace meetings, right? So those short video explainers, quick feedback. But sometimes teams do just have to meet live. as we've already discussed. So we're not anti-meeting here with Loom. I think we support these meetings when they have a purpose. And I think that's something, like just reading the comments in the chat, that we all agree as well. So that's where Loom's meeting note taker also comes in. So Loom's AI-powered meeting notes mean that you can also skip kind of all the note-taking that you do on the calls if you're still doing that. Everything is captured with kind of auto actions. Oops. See if we can get that working or not. Auto actions, and kind of everything is instantly logged within Confluence. I will show you that very briefly in real life, because that one doesn't seem to work. But essentially, kind of everything is instantly logged in Confluence, Jira, and Rovo for a future record, right? So being able to add Loom's note taker into your meetings, it just gives you, like additional confidence that those conversations are being captured. And that would look something like, just to show you very briefly, that would look something like, here we go. Something like this, auto-generated, auto-published, and as you can see, with the list of action items, summary, and basically a play-by-play of what happened in the meeting. Of course, with the recording already embedded. And again, all of this is feeding your system as like a centralized intelligence hub, right? Of information, of knowledge. It's institutional, and you're able to search for it once it's in there as well. So I'm going to move now into the better together, because I actually want to show you that first workflow regarding bug reporting. So up until now, we've seen those possibilities of Loom just on its own, and I already see a ton of questions, and I wish I could answer both at the same time and present. But what I'd like to show you now is how we can bring Loom together with Jira and Confluence and Rovo, which is our AI solution, to really turn kind of all the knowledge that we capture within Loom and insights into action here as well. So we're going to do our first use case, which is accelerating incident management with Loom. So thinking about uncovering an issue in whatever field you're working in, right? I'm going to focus on a bit more of an engineering use case, but I do want to say that, that this is applicable also to business teams, right? Regardless of where you work, you encounter an issue, you encounter a problem. How do we speed up that resolution and get the right hands on it as quickly as possible? So let's picture this. We are a coffee company with a coffee app that essentially supports ordering on the go for our customers. So rather than walking into one of our stores, we're able to open up the app and say ahead of time what we'd like, which tea or coffee we'd like to have. So picture this. It is a Monday morning, and we notice that the customers aren't their customers' orders aren't getting processed, and they aren't coming through okay, and they're hitting an error. So especially on a Monday morning in rush hour, that's causing us as a company a lot of risk in terms of revenue, and it's also creating a really bad customer experience. So one of our engineers goes ahead and replicates the issue and records a Loom. So let's watch that very briefly.
Hi team, it's Sarah here. I want to illustrate the issue we're experiencing right now that's preventing our customers from ordering their teas and coffees on the go with our app. So this is agnostic of the locations. It doesn't matter which location we select, we are hitting the following issue. So let's go ahead and click on the Adajang location, and let's choose the beverage of our choice to put in the cart. And now when I go ahead and click place order, I'm seeing an order failed error message with the reason and explanation due to.
I'm just going to pause that there, but hopefully you get the picture here, right? So we're using Loom to walk through in real time a particular error or issue as a way to share it with others. But now what I want to do is I want to work with the power of AI within Loom, because I actually want to go ahead and I want to put together a bug report to, in Jira, so we can get the right eyes on this and we can get things moving as quickly as possible. Now, I noticed the question in the chat that I actually want to address just now, which was, if we're recording our screen, our device with Loom, are we able to capture kind of other information, right? Are we able to capture console information, device information, network information? The answer is yes, if you want to. So I haven't got this set up here with this particular video, but yeah, if I wanted to replicate an issue that was happening, I could also choose to share my device information, share my console information, and my network information, which would also be added into the bug report as well for extra context. And that's all done automatically. So what you can see here is I have my bug report auto-generated, again, just taking the information that we have in the transcript and kind of on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create in Jira. And I'm just going to look for the appropriate space and the work item type. And then you can see here in just one click, I have that bug reported in Jira, ready to go and ready to work on. So a quick pause there, because I just want to see if there are any questions on that. I see, Hitesh, you've had your hand up for a while there.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, Sarah, I was just curious about is Loom having any translating tool right now, because it will surely needs in future.
Yeah, that's a
No
great
one in
question.
this,
Yeah, so we don't have the translating capability as of today. We are making some investments in that because, in all honesty, especially a lot of organizations are international and they're global, right? So, you know, especially if you want to get context from a team in a different region, and let's say they've had, you know, a conversation or decisions have been made in another language, I can understand then, you know, the appetite and the need to have that translatable. But for now, it's only going to give you the transcript in the language it was recorded in.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
I
sure.
see one question in the chat, right? Sarah,
Yeah,
you mentioned a decision being extracted. How does that AI handle disagreements in a recorded meetings? Can it highlight when a team hasn't reached a decision yet, or does it only pick up the final action items?
Yeah, that's a really nice question. I think it depends. Like, when you look at the summary, and especially when you look kind of at the play-by-play, for example. So here, let's say you have the meeting overview that's been auto-generated. It will call out, right, if you haven't reached a decision and if there is still explicit uncertainty, right? So if people explicitly say, we are still not aligned, right? We still haven't signed off on this, right? That's going to come through, right? That's going to come through in the output. If you're asking if it can understand if decisions implicitly weren't made, that's a little harder, right? It's harder to take that based on the tone of voice and those other kind of context cues. Does that answer your question, Paul?
Yes, sir. That greatly helps. Thank you.
Okay, we also have one more question. Is Loom good for asynchronous communication in remote teams?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say so. I think, you know, I've worked at a lot of organizations, but particularly here. So Atlassian is fully remote as default. So we do have some offices, but kind of as a global team, you can work where you want. We don't have an office mandate, and we only have a small number of kind of locations. So everybody works remotely, and all our teams are across multiple regions. So this is really how we move our work forward. For example, I work a lot with folks on the West Coast of the US. So just as I'm logging off for the day, they are just getting started. It's very hard to find that overlap. And I can imagine for some folks on the call, especially that disconnect, in terms of the time zones, it's even longer. So especially if I'm working with them and I have something that I want their feedback on, I'll work on that initiative during the day. I'll record a video of what I've achieved, ask for feedback, share that Loom with them. And then in the morning, I wake up and I have their feedback on my Loom. Sometimes if they have a bit more in-depth feedback, they might record a Loom as a response. That's also possible. And that keeps things moving quickly without having to find that like 1 hour of overlap that we have with each other when other teams are also fighting to have that space as well, right? Everyone's fighting to have that tiny little bit of overlap time. So with Loom, that kind of takes you out of that competition and allows you to move work forward together.
Okay. Do we have a time for questions, or you want to take it at the end
I
of this?
think if we can maybe finish this flow, which will maybe take 5 minutes, then from there, I think we can look to wrap up with some tips and tricks and answer any of the additional questions that we haven't got to, if that works for you all.
Yeah, perfect. I think let's wind up this one, and then we'll ask. I mean, we'll take the questions at the end of the session.
Perfect. Okay, lovely stuff. All right, so let's say we have logged this bug in Jira, and it's now time to start figuring out what's going wrong, how can we find a solution, etc. So a good way to get started, of course, is kind of in our organization, is to have a look across our knowledge repository and figure out, have similar incidents happened before? Have we got any important run books or playbooks that we can use to help us handle this issue as quickly as possible? So kind of essentially, how can we work in this case with Rovo to help us surface important information that could help us solve and address this issue faster? So for that, I have opened up Rovo on my right-hand side. So it's here as a chat interface, and I'm just going to pop in my question. So we are currently experiencing this particular order, particular issue with the order. Please pull any key historical documents and videos to help support me with this. Now, this is a pretty generic ask, of course. You can add links and other resources into that Rovo request if you want to make it even more bespoke. But I just want to show you off the bat what kind of information is going to get surfaced here in the response. All right, so let's have a little look at what is being returned. So first things first, we can see that we actually have a playbook to handle issues like this. Okay, fantastic. So we already have a bit of an overview. So I've got like a quick overview of like what that content entails, but I can always jump into it if I want a bit more information. And then I'm just going to ignore this because this is actually what we are doing now. But if I scroll down here, you'll also notice that I have a root cause analysis of a similar issue that happened about a year ago as well. And that's also a Confluence page. But even more importantly, so this was also a question that was asked a couple of minutes ago, was, thinking about it as a knowledge repository. You can see here that I've also have a Loom video that basically outlines the root cause analysis is also included into those search results as well. So I'm really able to use the information that was discussed kind of, on a meeting that perhaps took place and was recorded by Loom, or perhaps as an explicit short video that I put together to help me address that as quickly as possible. And so finally, what I'd say here is, so let's say that we've done a little bit of testing on our side and we think we've figured out what the issue is and we've had a look at all of the historical information and we've spoken with the right people. Well, of course, if we've identified a fix, we want to let everyone understand what the fix is and what the problem was, so that kind of looking ahead, if someone hits a similar issue in the future, they can search Open Rovo and surface all our key learnings. So again, from there, we can go ahead and we can kick off a Loom. Again, have it share our screen. Make me a little smaller. And then again, we can go and explain how we fixed the issue. And the cycle basically repeats and continues from there. So just wanted to finish up that flow for you, just to show you what that looks like. All right. I'm going to pause there. I did have another flow, but it's a little bit more like, this is something I'd be happy to share with you afterwards. This is a bit more on the training and enablement side. Again, also using the value of being able to put together different kinds of assets from a Loom video. So in this case, you can put together a how-to guide, or you can put like an SOP, so like a process, like documentation. But I think just given the time we have, and I know there's been a lot of questions, I really want to make sure that we, that we handle your questions. I would love to pause there and open the floor a little further for any questions. Yes, Philip.
Sarah, I was wondering if there are any results available of studies done to evaluate the impact of Loom, how people are moving from, let's say, organized meetings versus Loom meetings.
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that, Philip. Here, I just wanted to share a brief example. We have a ton more of these on our website that I'm happy to share with you further. But, just talking about the scale of meeting reduction and meeting replacement. This is remote, right? A large global HR platform that really looks after a lot of like a lot of contracted employees as a service, and they were needing a go-to tool for asynchronous communication and asynchronous ways of working. And so they chose to implement and adopt Loom across their entire business, across their 1,500 employees globally, for everything, everything from the corporate communication, so updates from leadership of things that folks should be aware of, perhaps new policies and procedures that had to be put into place, all the way down to the kind of enablement, right? Like how we do X, how we do Y, especially as folks are rolling into the org, rolling into the teams. How do we get them up to speed as quickly as possible so they're not having to hop on a meeting to learn how to do everything? How can we empower them to self-serve that information and learn and kind of learn at a time convenient to them? And yeah, what you can see here actually as a result of remote adopting and rolling out Loom in their organization, in their first 2 years, they saved 20,000 hours worth of meetings. And yeah, what you can see on the right-hand side, 1.3 million minutes of video watched within that time as well. So, every organization is in a different, in a different stage when it comes to, perhaps adopting a more asynchronous way of working. I think, like in your case, Michael, it sounded like your organization is pretty far along in that. But yeah, this was pretty compelling to see just how much time could be given back to the team to focus on more high impact tasks, right? Again, we're not trying to replace a meeting that has a purpose, that has meaning, that can be productive. We are trying to replace those meetings that we have just to align, and then those meetings that that do have high value, we can make sure that the transcript is captured, actions are captured, the recording is captured, and we can make those a lot more efficient and productive. Does that answer your question, Philip?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for asking.
Oh, Sarah, one more question that we have here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so it is like, how does Loom handle large organizations with thousands of recordings?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Awesome. So if you are using Loom on the business and AI or the enterprise subscription, we have unlimited storage when it comes to how many videos can be recorded. Of course, we don't want to give organizations an upper limit per se. We want people to feel empowered that they're able to record the information that they need without a ceiling. If you're just getting started and you're using our starter offering and our free offering, we do have a limit on the number of videos that each user can create. But yes, in terms of the storage length, in terms of the storage amount, if we're looking at the business and above, we don't have an upper limit. Recording, just looking at the length of videos, I don't know if we have a limit to that. I've seen recordings on my side that are like 4 hours worth. Like if we have like a note taker in a meeting room and we have multiple meetings and we're just recording the whole thing. It's also possible. So happy to check on the website if we have a hard limit on the video length, but in terms of, like in terms of storage, in terms of, like what's possible, you know, as an organization, you have the flexibility there to record what you need. Did that answer your question, Shivam?
I think that question is from
Oh,
Punipolu
apologies.
Prakash. Yeah,
Yes.
I just read that from the chat. So
Great.
you can.
Even hi, this is Deva here from this side. So I think the same question I was having, but I think at free, I know it's a 25 count.
Yep.
But again, we're also not sure of if we are using any premium version of TWC, then what could be the count? That was I also looking for. But anyway, I think we need to go back to the Atlassian website to get this. But I have a different question actually altogether. So
Yeah, please.
when we are recording the video, we are getting the action items, right? Now, from the action item, we can convert those as a Jira ticket as well. Jira task or Jira user story, we can convert, correct?
We get the, hang on, let me find them. Get out of the PowerPoint. So we usually get the action items here. Can we, I don't think, actually, off the top of my head, I don't know if we can convert them immediately into Jira. There might be a kind of intermediary point that we can do with Rovo. I would need to check with that because I know, for example, let me go into Jira. Like what I could do as an example is I could ask here, say, hey, based on, you know, like Loom video, create the appropriate Jira work items, for example. I don't know if we have that ability directly within Loom, so I would need to find that out for you. But kind of if we're doing it with Rovo, we have all sorts of capabilities to kind of action content and spin up content.
Yeah. But I think there is some capability if, let's suppose, I'm creating a video for identifying any bug. If we integrate the existing Jira instance, then we can create, right?
Yeah. So like, you know, like in the example that I showed you, right? So we basically had, we were able to put the entire, you know, like the entire issue itself into the form of a work item, but that would be one single work item, right? So, you know, just a quick recap as what you saw. I went ahead and I took all the context that was recorded in Loom and I had this auto-generated summary and it gives me one Jira work item. I think what you're asking is, hey, all the action items within that, can we split them out? And I would have to come back to you on that one. I don't think it's possible directly from Loom. I think we might have to do it with the help of Rovo, but happy to come back to you on that one.
Okay. One last question. Let's suppose we are going to create a single ticket from here also.
Yeah.
Let's suppose if any particular field is mandatory. So in that case, Loom will be able to handle that ticket will be get created, or
is your question if like Loom will be able to auto-populate specific fields?
Correct. For example, if you click on create Jira now here.
Yeah, so you would need to fill out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's answered my question. I was thinking like it will not pop up directly, it will create. So because sometimes what happen, there could be a lot of mandatory fields, right? So it may fail. Okay, I think.
But couldn't Rovo you look at that Loom and fill out those fields for you?
Yeah, so kind of off the back of that, just to continue that train of thought, right? Let's say that as a user you forgot to add in information here that had to be included, right? Perhaps you forgot to fill out a field that had to be included. What you could do is, let's say that the work item is published here. If folks on the call have worked with automation before, you could have an automation within your space, right? Whereby you say, hey, every time a bug is created, and then we could use X Rovo agent to review and ensure the bug is correctly kind of labeled, or the fields are filled in, right? That's also possible, right? So every time like a new work item is spun up, especially from Loom, we could have an agent, for example, on the back end doing a quick audit of what's landed, and if something is missing, right, perhaps that could trigger a notification back to the user, or perhaps they could add in like those fields that were missing. If they are standard fields or like standard responses that would go in those fields, right? Like what I would say here is that a lot of these use cases can be handled with the help of automation and Rovo together.
Okay.
Great. Cool. So as I begin to wind up, and perhaps I'm happy to share this content with you after the meeting as well, just for some of the things that we didn't get to. I just wanted to leave you with a couple of ideas. Again, we touched on this earlier in the meeting, but as you open your laptops next week on Monday morning, just a couple of different things that you could consider if you are interested in getting started with Loom but aren't quite sure where to make the move, where to make the first step, right? So as I mentioned earlier, perhaps being able to replace a status update with the help of Loom. So rather than having, like a 10-minute, update on a call, or a really long piece of text with an MS Teams or Slack or email, that could be a nice way just to get started. And again, you don't have to have your camera on. You can have the camera off. You can just have the audio, right? Whatever you're comfortable with. People work very differently, and I think it's all about like how we meet people where they are. Secondly, again, if you have a big meeting that has to happen, like a business review or like a steer co, for example, rather than having like a pre-read, you could consider having a Loom ahead of time just to share some important updates. I would say keep it short. I think the longer a Loom gets, it's harder for people to keep their attention. I think in the world that we live in, we have very short attention spans, unfortunately, with the advent of a lot of the technology that we use and the social media we use. So, if I have to give you some advice, always keep your Loom videos as short and succinct as possible, or as long as needed. We don't want to lose people as we go. So then in this case, short video, and then we jump into the call and we have the decisions that we have to make, and everyone already has the context. So we're not having to lose time because X person hadn't read the pre-read or hadn't watched the pre-read. As you saw, again, you could use Loom to record a bug or an issue. Again, if you aren't in the engineering field and thinking about it, perhaps even from a business perspective, perhaps perhaps you're a project manager and perhaps you notice that your project is at risk of like turning red, turning amber. Perhaps it's going to go out of budget. Something's going to happen and you need immediate help, right? How, recording the context, recording the scenario and being able to share that adds extra urgency rather than having to find time for everyone to hop on that call. That can be hard. Perhaps you still miss someone, right? That's also something to think about. And then, of course, thinking about how you can explain a process or a system to your team, right? Perhaps there is something that was just implemented, or perhaps there's a process that you're always getting a lot of questions about, a lot of confusion, and people are always kind of, like asking you and kind of like on the shoulder, like, hey, what does this mean? How do I handle this? Walk through that process in a Loom. There you go. And then that's something that can be reused again and again. So you can focus your time on kind of other important things to keep things going. And last but not least, and this is something that I use Loom for a lot, if you are working on some kind of initiative, perhaps a dashboard, a spreadsheet, some kind of content, and you're looking for feedback, right? You can basically put together a short Loom of what you've worked on and like why you've designed it the way you have, and ask for feedback. Ask a call for, like have a call to action, like, hey team, I would love you to watch this 2 to 3 minute video, and then I would love you to leave your feedback in the form of comments on the video, right? So just a couple of ideas of ways that you could get started. So perhaps I would also love to understand from your standpoint, what other ideas have you got? Perhaps if you are looking to get started with Loom next week, perhaps you even have some specific ideas.
Sarah, we do have a couple more questions in the chat. I think we should go. And
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a curious, if the developer fixes the bug, does the status update sync back to the Loom video, or do we mostly use Loom to start the work and Jira to finish it?
Exactly. Yeah. I would say it's the latter. I would say it's the latter. We're not syncing information out of Jira into Loom. Like what I would maybe say in that respect is if you wanted to, but this would be something that you would have to implement as a process. Perhaps you would go into Loom after the bug is fixed, and you could say, you could maybe say or add like solved, for example. That could be a possibility, but we don't have like a bi-directional. Yeah. As you mentioned, I think in the question, whoever asked that, you kick things off in Loom from a documentation perspective, but then all the work is handled and wrapped up and finished in Jira.
Right. How, we have a question from Prakash. How reliable is the Loom's automatic captioning for technical discussion?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in all honesty, it isn't going to be 100%, and that's why we give you the ability to edit your transcript as well, right? So if there is a word or kind of, acronyms that aren't captured in the right way, right? You have the experience that perhaps Loom doesn't have. You can go ahead. And you can adjust that as needed.
Right. Does Loom have any limitation regarding a video link storage or sharing across different teams?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in terms of the video link storage, I think we talked about that before. So it just depends on the subscription that you're on. So if you are on a free plan or on a standard plan, you do have limits. If you are on the Business plus AI plan and above, you don't have any upper limits in terms of storage. And then the second question, just remind me of the second part of that question. Hey,
like any limitation sharing across the different teams?
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, perhaps super quickly on the sharing rights. So what we can do is we can choose to either share the videos explicitly with our colleagues, right? And we can call them out specifically with their email addresses or their names. What you'll also notice is, especially in the use cases of wanting to share information across the organization, we can make that video available. So again, thinking about a company announcement or a process that everyone needs to have like visibility or access to, that's also possible. And again, if you have an external use case, like we had this afternoon when I shared that video with you, right? I can share the video with a public link if it is allowed in the organization. I also want to be super clear that, enterprise organizations are going to be risk averse, and you do have an ability on the admin level to switch that ability off. If it is enabled, you are able to share with a public link, and if the capability is offered, you can protect that link with a password too.
Okay. Now the next question is, does Loom provides API or webhook to automated video management or embedded recordings into developer workflow?
Good question. So let me just noodle on that question. To embed recordings into developer workflows. I'm just trying to understand. I'm just trying to understand the use case there, Prakash. So, if you're still with us, perhaps you could shed a little bit more light on it. Like, is there a different application that you'd be looking to kind of embed the Loom in, or is it more to extract information from the Loom? What's the thinking? If you're still with us. Think we might have lost him. I mean, I can answer then just at a high level. Like ultimately, if we're looking at embedding a Loom, we have the ability, so we can basically embed with the URL, and then it's going to unfurl on the page. If it's going to unfurl on a page outside of the Atlassian ecosystem, you do have to have the extension in order for that to happen. If you don't have the extension, it's not going to automatically unfurl. So if you're working like the Google Suite, for example, just make sure that you have the extension in your browser, and then it will automatically unfurl like this. In terms of automations or kind of API access, I would need to get back on that. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, let me add on the point here. Like
Yeah.
Loom does not have standard REST APIs, but Loom does have their own SDK, software development kits, and then you can leverage that and build something. But they do not have a standard generational APIs, REST APIs.
Wonderful. Thanks for the clarification there.
Yeah. How Loom videos can be integrated into product documentation system like Confluence. So how Loom can be integrated with the Confluence basically.
Yeah, of course. No, that's a great question. So either what we can do is we can go ahead and we can copy the URL and we can simply paste it in. So let's pull up one of these documents. As you can see, I just go ahead. This is a live document. I'm just pasting it in, and it's going to automatically unfurl like so. What you can also do, which is also what we saw earlier with the bug report, right? This is the wrong use case, but if we wanted to, we could put together like a how-to guide and like sync that into Confluence. So again, it would work in the same way as the bug report. And what you notice is it splits up your video into screenshots and step by step, like so. And then you could go ahead and add that automatically into Confluence. Again, just choosing the right space for it to go. And then when that embeds, you'll have each of the screenshots and the step-by-step instructions as part of that process. And of course, you'll have a link back to the original video as well.
Perfect. We do have a last two questions.
Yeah, wonderful.
How can teams ensure that important knowledge shared through Loom recordings remains accessible and useful for the future team members?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I would say is, like especially because we have folks incoming and outgoing as well, we have the ability to, so kind of as admins, we could, especially with information that's going to be kind of evergreen and important to keep, we can make copies of those videos and we can have that kind of in our organizational knowledge here. We can also change the owners of the videos too. So there are a couple of ways to make sure that things don't get lost as folks are, as folks are heading out of the company, right?
Okay. Last question. Can you respond to a received or shared Loom with a Loom? Are the Loom responses linked together?
That's a great question, actually, Michael. I don't believe they're linked together per se, and in terms of an underlying integration. But what you could do, if you wanted to, is you could, in the Loom itself, in the comments, right? You could pop your Loom in the comment, or something that I see a bit more like often. So let's say that we have one of these issues in Jira. I think I have it. Yeah, in Jira, I see a lot of Loom back and forths actually happen in the comment of a work item. So here, for example, if you notice, we'll have an entry point here in the comments, and we can record a video comment in the Loom in the work item, in the comment even. And then after that's published, if someone else has a response, they could then record a Loom in another comment and have that back to, have that like back and front. And I think for this kind of use case, it's always important to keep everything in the context of that work item. So that would be an interesting application or use case for it.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, wonderful.
Right. I think we don't have any questions left. We've covered all the questions. But we only have 6 minutes left. So let me just take over, and
yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome to have all your enthusiasm and involvement as well. Really appreciate all the questions that you've all been sharing.
Perfect. Let me share the screen. All right. First of all, thank you, Sarah, for taking your time, and giving us the detailed session, I would say, because it covers everything. And thanks to all the people who joined, because they've asked a lot of questions. That's how we extract the information from Sarah's brain. So thanks for asking a lot of questions here. So I'd like to give a thanks a tone to different chapters that help us to hosting. So thanks to Ghaziabad, Patna, Pune, Mumbai, Chandigarh, Kolkata, Jaipur, Faridabad, Mangaluru, Bhubaneswar. So these are the chapters that co-hosted this event. I see Bibek from Bhubaneswar, Guru from Mangaluru, Shivam from Faridabad chapter, Animika from Jaipur chapter, right? So these are the people who hosted this event. That's how we got the audience also. And one more thing I would like to say that guys, please do join every Atlassian session, because what Atlassian is doing, right, for every attendee, Atlassian is donating a $10 to the foundation that helping us for partner organization to advance gender equality and opportunities for women and girls around the world. So this is the campaign that Atlassian running for women's till March. So please do join the another sessions also. So indirectly you are helping or contributing to the global cause. One more thing I would like to say. So on 17th March, there is a championship happening, and there are two teams are in the final. That is Genius versus a New Jira Avengers, and whoever is winning, right? So they get an opportunity to donate $10,000 as from Atlassian Foundation to their own, NGO. So they are donating $10,000. So do join, and indirectly you are contributing to that. And that's it. Thanks Sarah, and thanks everyone. And I think, yeah, we need to announce winners. So Sarah, pick the one